Recently, I hosted the 2022 MashUp Game Jam, but instead of giving you all a normal theme, I decided to give you the challenge of using the Game Randomizer to give you prompts to make a game from. I did it with my game about a giraffe in a shopping mall, and you all made games that were even cooler. Whether you were sacrificing dogs into a volcano, making bridges out of hammers, working at an airport between worlds, or trying to be the stinkiest cowboy around, we have it all. After playing and rating them, I've collected my personal 10 favourite games from the jam, but before we get to them, let's first have some honourable mentions. Hammer Prototype is a great example of how game feel can make a world of difference. Though the game is small and there isn't any objective to your playing, the amount of polish added into throwing this hammer around is perfect. Shield of Ruins takes a base defense game and has an adorable art style over the top. Though the game is quite intense, the music works well to spur you on, and the world and characters are very beautifully drawn. Dark Park has a unique take on horror, where you're being tracked down by a monster that you can only see through your camera. Take a photo and the monster temporarily backs off, giving you more time to explore the theme park and find the key to escape. Toymageddon is a shooter where you're a toy that uses a microphone to attack insects. Not only does this game offer a big world to traverse through, but some rocking music to accompany. A Walk in the Dark is a pretty well executed platformer. And as an added bonus, you get multiple paths advanced throughout the game, offering a challenge to those who want to take it. Shelf Roll is a simple concept of tilting platforms to get the ball into the toy box, but goes further and expands on the mechanic with new twists like books, breakable shelves and more. It's a good example of keeping a mechanic interesting. Not Enough Space is a solid entry that has a decent amount of playtime where you defend Earth from a mixture of enemies. The game ramps up nicely, and there's a nice duality to your weapon as you use it both to shoot enemies and to collect their resources after the rounds. Overall, I was very impressed with everyone's games, but these next 10 were my definite favourites. Lactose to the Rescue is definitely one of the more unique ideas to come out of this jam. If the concept of playing as an ancient milk creature that has to prevent the volcanic disaster of Pompeii sounds weird to you, well, you won't be alone. But the strength of this game is that it fully runs with it. Being a milk-based creature, you have two special abilities, the Milk Step and Cheese String, the former acting as a double jump and the latter acting as a wall grab. While this already makes for some platforming fun, there's another layer added to it. Every time you use a special move, you deplete your milk meter. This creates an interesting balance in maneuverability, as you have to plan the moves you have to take until you get to the next milk bottle to refresh your meter. There's some good level design too. Throughout the game you get introduced to new mechanics and new challenges as you avoid getting burnt by the rising lava. It did feel a little too difficult at times, but the game is split into separate areas, so if you die it's not very punishing and not a lot of progress is lost. It's an overall solid entry and it offers a good amount of fun throughout. Making a multiplayer game for a game jam is quite the challenge, but Battle for the Stone is one of those exceptions. It's a relatively simple idea. You have to jump and kick your opponent off the rock, but there are many parts that stand out. The first thing is that the rock tilts. It adds more to the balance of trying to kick your enemy off and trying not to fall off the stage yourself. Secondly, the whole game's presentation is neatly improved with post-processing. The time left of the match is displayed through a glowing orange that envelops the water below. And since we're talking about it, the water animation just looks amazing. What this game does to combat the difficulties of multiplayer is that it offers 3 different modes, and 2 of the 3 offer playing against an AI instead of another person. This makes the game much more accessible to all those who don't have someone to play with, and though the AI isn't too difficult, it is quite fun to just bully them by kicking them off whenever they get back on. The Endless mode on the other hand is extremely difficult, as you are against 3 other opponents and you're only able to kick one of them, which offers a good amount of challenge for those seeking it. It's no surprise I would love What's the Deal with Airline food, as I just adore when hand-drawn art is used in games. First off, it goes the extra step at the beginning by giving you an opening cutscene with voice acting, and it really helps set the scene, which is kind of an interesting one. You see, you're a dog in an airport, which seems to have been overrun by sentient hamburger creatures. You can bark at them to damage them, and you can dodge roll about. If you die, you get the bad ending where you see the burger overlords successfully overthrow the world. But if you manage to defeat all the burger monsters, then you complete and move on to the next level. The airport is very nicely drawn, and the animations in the burgers and the dog add a lot of character to the game. You've also got a lot of these interactable suitcases around the map which you can push around. It doesn't really add anything to the gameplay except blocking you, but it's a neat little addition. Even though the game is quite difficult, it definitely has charm to spare. Plus, when you manage to find a good balance of barking then dashing away, it's definitely beatable. Vampires vs Ghosts brings a really cool mechanic to their game. You play as a vampire who wields a katana, and your goal is to plug up these holes which act as spawn points for ghosts that try to hurt you. Quite a common theme of vampires are that they don't have reflections, and this carries into this game too, but the mechanic that makes this game interesting is that ghosts are the complete opposite. They can't be seen in the world, but you can see their reflection in the water. The game's focus on reflection is very consistent throughout the game's level design, as you have lots of rooms that are offering a different layout of water, and hence a unique type of challenge in each area. You collect wooden boards in the level that you can then use to block up the holes that ghosts come out of, but the game amps up the spawn rate of ghosts with each hole plugged, which adds a good escalation throughout. But I found it a little difficult to do it one by one, and ended up collecting all the boards before then plugging the holes. But even with this alternative approach, I was still met with a good amount of challenge. The combat is fun and the art is both appealing and theme appropriate, so all in all, it's a good entry. If you want a game that makes you feel like you're really good at the game, even though you aren't, then check out Gravity Grove. It's a gravity-defying game where you play as a witch that's trying to fight off the corruption of the forest. You have these insect creatures that jump at you and you attack with your broom, which you can also ride on. And better yet, you can flip the direction of your gravity and move between the top and bottom of the screen. This game is a really good example of doing a lot with a little. The art alone doesn't have to use a lot of colours or pixels to look really good, and the hit effects especially really sell the awesomeness of it all. But I think the part where this game really sells is that by giving you only an attack button and a jump button, you can still do a lot. By using the arrow keys to move around, you can also use them to aim your attacks left, right, up or down. If you jump and then hold the same button, you'll fly around on your broomstick for a little while. During this time, you can also attack enemies by flying your broom into them. If you jump while aiming above you, then you will flip the gravity. If you attack in midair, it will slow your fall. Manage this well and you have a lot you can do. I really liked flipping the gravity and then attacking as much as possible, so I attacked in the middle of the air. This entry really shows that just because a game seems simple, it does not mean it can't offer a lot and be really fun. This next one definitely plays to my love of trains, for Space Train is a well-crafted idle game about a train travelling around a solitary planet. To get the train moving, you have to continuously click on this button, which is pretty standard for an idle game. The more you click, the faster the train moves. Your win goal is when you reach a certain speed, but it's pretty much impossible to get there at the start. So that's when you buy train carriages. What I like about this entry is that it not only focuses on the train theme, but also adds the theme of keeping the planet alive and green. Just like how you stoke the train's fuel, you can also click on the planet to boost its wildlife and grow trees. And the train carriages you buy works off of that. You have carriages that cut down trees, you've got wood that burns in other carriages, which then trades the wood for more speed. And because you'd rather not deforest the whole planet, you have another type of carriage which plants trees as they pass. On top of all of this, you can also purchase upgrades to improve your train, which is a good touch for making the gameplay loop more engaging. You feel like you're making progress without being overwhelmed with info, and it does really well with that sweet spot towards the end where you've put a lot of effort into building it up that you could just step back and let it continue getting quicker and quicker. The game even has a really nice soundtrack, which makes the ending cutscene that much more victorious. One of the games that I found to be the most immersive in all aspects is ESP. Even from the very first moments of the game, it does well at setting the atmosphere.
Emergency safety protocol activated. Please report to the nearest terminal.
The game is based on a space station, and you have to find the codes to input in the terminals to override the emergency safety protocol and get the life systems back online. First of all, I have to talk about the controls. I was just amazed at how this really sold the idea that you're floating in space. The movement has a lot of floatiness to it, so your acceleration and deceleration is slow, and you move forwards in whatever direction you're looking towards. It offers a fun little orientation where you no longer know which way is up, but it adds a lot to trying to navigate around the space station. As it goes on and you explore more of the station, you're also fed bits of information to give background to the people on the station and a hint as to what is happening. It already has a thriller feel, but the story adds more to it, and there's a scary isolation to the game that is only added through the notes you find. And the graphics just look really good too. There's a grainy post-processing added to it, and the game is primarily in greys and some red lights, which really helps sell the mood. It's a bit of a challenge to try and figure out the layout of the space station, but I personally found that to be in the game's favour. Overall, it was a thrilling entry that easily made me feel like I actually was in space. The next game, Blood Ticket, manages to take a small gameplay loop and make it a whole lot of fun. You play as a character trying to survive a train station in the zombie apocalypse, which itself seems to be a very cool concept to me, but that might also be playing to my love of trains. When you shoot and kill zombies, you're able to pick up the bodies and carry them to the nearest vending machine to earn money, which you can then use to buy health or bullets. The ultimate goal is to survive long enough and earn enough money to buy a train ticket and then make a mad dash for the platform to leave the train station. In survival shooters like this, it's easy to limit the player capabilities to just shooting and moving around, but with picking up zombie corpses and selling them at vending machines, that adds a lot to the gameplay. When you're carrying a body, you can't shoot, which means you have to switch between shooting the zombies or collecting the bodies and earning money. Unless you run out of bullets, in which case it creates a very stressful moment where you have to go to a vending machine without the zombies killing you when you buy the bullets. The gameplay is highly amplified by how the game looks and sounds. The lighting really helps to sell the atmosphere of the derelict train station, and it highlights the vending machines as points of focus. The sound effects of shooting and the particle effects make the combat really juicy, and easily keeps you entertained all the way through. This was the first game that I played from the jam, and I played it for 20 minutes straight. Granted, that was partly because the first time I had earned enough for the train ticket, my brain just skipped the purchase the ticket part, and I ended up dying at the ticket barrier. It's easily one of the best games from the jam, and one I would definitely consider playing again. Another game I spent a long time playing was Fisheye. The game is simple. You're a tadpole in a pond that follows your mouse. If you click, then you shoot a bullet in whatever direction you're facing. The bullets will damage enemies when they bounce off the wall once, but when they bounce off twice, then they can damage you. Hit an enemy enough and you'll be able to consume it, giving you another tadpole. The game's rules err on the side of simplicity, which for some games can easily lead to boring gameplay, but with this one it really works. You have to put more thought into your shooting, and you're often switching between lining yourself up for a good shot, weaving around enemies to consume that one you hit, and avoiding your own bullets bouncing back at you. Over time you get more enemies coming at you and more difficult battles, but you also get these golden fish. Consume these fish and you earn yourself a coin that you then use in a vending machine to earn power-ups for your tadpoles. One of the beauties of this game is that it does a lot to keep you calm in little ways when the gameplay can get quite stressful. The art is quite minimalistic, and the colour palette is a mixture of muted greens, browns, reds and yellows. This makes the game very easy to digest and understand, and so is the music and the sound effects. When you die, you just hear a little chime and a calming "you died" screen. Not only does this game have a very calm feel that doesn't overwhelm the player, but in the progress bar it makes the player feel like their loss isn't a complete restart. How you play the game is quite low effort, yet engaging, making it a perfect fit for casual players. And the final game I'll be talking about is the game that not only took first place overall, but also first in 4 other categories and second in another, Portal Packer. The amount of fun and polish that was put into this game is really impressive, even more so considering that this was made by a single person, who, fun fact, also made Gun Mountain from the last Game Jam. One thing this game does really well is not to give you everything at once, but add things over time so you don't get overwhelmed, and it gives time to explore mechanics before it moves on. First off, you start in the middle of nowhere, move to the left and you are locked off and encouraged to move to the right. Once you've gone through some simple platforms, you find the backpack, the game's first mechanic. Through some interactive puzzles, you find out you can place down and pick up the backpack, and retrieve it from some distances as long as you have an obstructive view of it. The game does this steadily, and offers some fun puzzles from the get-go, and considering things like the game's name, mechanics and the lab setting, I don't think it's a surprise that this reminds me of the beginning of Portal. There is a lot of polish. When you move, your body tilts a little towards the direction you're heading, and there's both a fade out and little cutscene of walking into the room when you move between areas. When you die, there's a really cool particle effect to where you were before you died, and the only punishment is a second or two. Once you're introduced to the backpack's upgrade, the game reaches its peak, because now you have portals to play with. It offers a lot more to the puzzles, and the game doesn't fail on using that potential. It also uses a lot of the initial bag mechanics too, rather than abandoning them, and these two different mechanics work really well together. The sound of this game too was really nice, and helps sell the sci-fi feel of the game. Well done on an amazing entry. And that marks the end of another MashUp Game Jam. Though the jam didn't get as many entries as the previous years, and a few people didn't like the unconventional theme, I really enjoyed playing all of the entries and I thought they were great. And if you didn't enter the jam or want to make another game, maybe give the Game Randomizer a go yourself and have some fun with it. I wish you all a happy holiday season and happy new year. and I'll see you all in 2023. Goodbye.